In the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, where justice rides a thin line between law and conscience, some battles are fought not with guns but with the courage to stand for what is right. Sheriff Thomas McKenzie adjusted his worn leather badge as he sat behind his oak desk in Redding, Colorado. The morning sun cast long shadows through the dusty windows of his office. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Deputy Morgan entered, holding a folded piece of bark paper with strange markings. "This came for you, Sheriff. Indian boy left it at dawn." Mackenzie examined the crude envelope. His name was written in careful English script beneath native symbols. Inside, words in broken English told of missing children from the Shoshone reservation. The letter spoke of 12 young souls who had vanished over 2 months, promised work in the new mines but never returned. Chief Gray Eagle's words were simple yet desperate. "My people hunger. Children go to white man's holes in mountain. No come back. You lawman, you help." Mackenzie frowned, remembering the generous donations from local businessmen during his last election campaign. Surely respectable citizens wouldn't. He pushed the thought away, but something nagged at his conscience like a persistent itch. That evening, Mackenzie sat in the Golden Dollar Saloon, nursing his whiskey. The familiar smell of tobacco and sweat filled the air. At a corner table, he noticed 3 well-dressed strangers deep in conversation with local miners. Their voices were low, urgent. "The new shipment arrives tomorrow," one whispered. "Make sure they're processed quickly." The miners nodded nervously, glancing toward the sheriff. Mackenzie pretended to study his glass while straining to hear more, but the men fell silent when a cowboy stumbled too close to their table. Walking home under the starlit sky, Mackenzie recalled strange tracks he'd seen last month near Bear Creek. Small bare feet alongside wagon wheels, heading toward the mountains. He'd dismissed them then, but now they haunted his thoughts. The letter crinkled in his vest pocket as he made his decision. Tomorrow, he would ride to the old fort and meet with Chief Gray Eagle. His badge felt heavier somehow, weighted with the responsibility of truth. Whatever was happening to those children, he would discover it, regardless of the political consequences that might follow. The morning sun painted the abandoned fort's wooden walls golden as Mackenzie rode through the creaking gates. Chief Gray Eagle waited in the shadow of the old watchtower, his weathered face etched with worry. Beside him stood a young woman in traditional buckskin dress, her long black hair braided with copper ornaments. "This is my daughter, Copper Arrow," Gray Eagle said in careful English. "She speaks your tongue well. Mission school taught her white man's words." Mackenzie tipped his hat respectfully. The woman's intelligent dark eyes met his steadily, showing no fear despite the gravity of their meeting. 12 children have vanished, Sheriff Mackenzie," Copper Arrow said, her voice clear and strong. "All between 10 and 16 summers. They left believing they would earn honest wages in the new mines." She opened a leather pouch and spread small items on a wooden crate. A carved wooden horse, a beaded bracelet, a child's moccasin. "These we found near the tunnel entrances in the Rocky Mountains. The earth there smells of fear and sorrow." Mackenzie examined each item, feeling the weight of young lives in these simple possessions. "Tell me about the last time you saw them." "My nephew, Little Wolf, was among the first to go," Copper Arrow continued, pain flickering across her features. "A white man came to our village with promises of fair work and good food. He wore fine clothes and spoke of teaching our children valuable skills." She knelt and drew a map in the dirt with a stick. "The children went willingly. They wanted to help their families, but the spirits of the mountains whisper of trapped souls crying in the darkness." Mackenzie studied the crude map, noting the locations of official mining operations versus the mysterious tunnels. "I know these mountains better than any white man," Copper Arrow said, rising to face him. "I can guide you to the places where the children's spirits still call out. But you must understand, if we find what I fear we will find, it will change everything between your people and mine." Mackenzie felt an unexpected warmth at her courage and determination. Despite the cultural divide between them, he recognized a kindred spirit seeking justice. "Then we start tomorrow," he said. "First, we'll visit the official mines and check their employment records. If those children are being held somewhere, we'll find them." Mackenzie and Copper Arrow rode from mine to mine under the blazing Colorado sun. At each operation, the story remained the same. Ledgers showed no record of Indian children, foremen claimed ignorance, and workers avoided eye contact when questioned. At the third mine, a nervous bookkeeper named Hartwell wiped sweat from his brow as he stammered, "Well, Sheriff, there might be some special projects that Mr. Edward Clark oversees personally, but I wouldn't know nothing about the details." The name hung in the air like smoke. Clark, the town's wealthiest citizen, owner of the bank, hotel, and general store. Clark has always been generous to the church and respectable folk, McKenzie murmured as they rode away from the mine. Hard to believe he'd be involved in something like this. Copper Arrow studied the horizon with keen eyes. "In my experience, Sheriff, those who speak loudest of virtue often hide the darkest secrets. The spirits warned me of a man with golden tongue and black heart. That evening, they positioned themselves on a ridge overlooking Clark's grand estate. As darkness fell, they watched an unusual procession of wagons leaving the property, heading toward the distant mountains under cover of night. Following the wagon tracks through moonlit canyons, Copper Arrow's tracking skills proved invaluable. She read the signs like words on a page. 4 wagons, heavy loads, moving toward Black Rock Canyon. See how the wheels cut deep? They carry more than mining equipment. The trail led to an abandoned mine shaft, supposedly played out years ago. But fresh timbers supported the entrance, and the sound of hammering echoed from deep within the earth. "This shaft was closed when I was a child," Copper Arrow whispered. "My grandfather hunted deer here. Now it breathes again with human sorrow." Hidden behind a cluster of boulders, they waited and watched. As dawn approached, they heard something that made Mackenzie's blood run cold. The sound of children's voices, weak and frightened, drifting up from the depths below. "Little Wolf," Copper Arrow breathed, recognizing one voice among the others. Tears glistened in her eyes as she gripped Mackenzie's arm. "They're alive, but barely. We must act quickly." Mackenzie nodded grimly, his hand instinctively moving to his Colt revolver. "We'll need help. This is bigger than just the two of us can handle. But first, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with down there." Under cover of darkness, Mackenzie and Copper Arrow descended into the abandoned mine shaft. The air grew thick and stale as they navigated the narrow tunnels by lantern light. The sound of pickaxes echoed from deeper chambers, accompanied by the occasional crack of a whip and harsh commands. "Move faster, you lazy heathens," a voice barked. "Mr. Clark expects twice this output by week's end." They pressed against the tunnel wall as a supervisor passed, his lamp casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The man's face was cruel, scarred by years of violence and drink. Peering around a corner, they witnessed a scene that filled Mackenzie with rage. 12 children, barely more than skin and bones, worked in chains within a hidden copper mine. Their small hands bled from handling the rough ore, and their eyes held the hollow look of the defeated. "Little Wolf," Copper Arrow whispered, spotting her young nephew among the prisoners. The boy's face was gaunt, his spirit nearly broken. A guard noticed the child's moment of weakness and raised his whip. "Back to work, boy, or you'll taste leather again." Mackenzie's hand moved to his gun, but Copper Arrow held him back with urgent pressure. They watched in horror as Edward Clark himself descended into the mine for his weekly inspection. The distinguished gentleman they knew from church socials transformed into a cold taskmaster as he surveyed his illegal operation. "These children cost me mere pennies," Clark told his foreman. "The local officials turn a blind eye for the right price. If any try to escape, remind them what happened to the last one who attempted it." Little Wolf looked up with defiant eyes. "My people will come for us." Clark backhanded the boy cruelly. "Your people are savages with no power here. You belong to me now." Hidden in the shadows, Mackenzie and Copper Arrow learned the full scope of Clark's operation. Tomorrow, another group of children would arrive from the Comanche reservation, lured by the same false promises of honest work and fair wages. "We've seen enough," Mackenzie whispered as they began their careful retreat. "We need to get word to your father and gather enough men to end this nightmare." Copper Arrow nodded, her jaw set with determination. "These children have suffered long enough, but Clark is powerful and has many friends. We must be smart about how we approach this, or he'll simply move his operation and disappear." As they emerged into the starlight, Both knew their real battle was just beginning. Hidden in a cave overlooking the mine, Mackenzie and Copper Arrow spent the night planning their rescue operation. The flickering campfire cast warm shadows on the stone walls as they studied crude maps drawn in the dirt. "We'll need to time this perfectly," Mackenzie said, his voice low. "One mistake, and those children pay the price." Copper Arrow nodded, then winced as she shifted position. The stress of the day had taken its toll, and exhaustion showed in her dark eyes. "In my culture, we believe the spirits guide us to those we're meant to help. Perhaps they also guide us to those we're meant to." She paused, leaving the thought unfinished. Under the starlight, their conversation turned from strategy to personal stories. Copper Arrow spoke of her childhood, caught between two worlds at the mission school where she learned English but was forbidden to speak her native tongue. "I dreamed of building bridges between our peoples," she said softly. "But I never imagined it would begin like this, with such darkness." Mackenzie found himself drawn to her strength and wisdom. "I lost my faith in justice when my wife died of consumption 3 years ago, but meeting you, it's like finding a light in the darkness again." Their eyes met across the dying fire. "Tell me about her," Copper Arrow said gently, sensing his pain. Mackenzie's voice grew distant. "Sarah was everything good in this world. She taught Sunday school, helped anyone in need. When the fever took her, I questioned everything I believed about fairness and God's plan." Copper Arrow reached across the space between them, her fingers brushing his weathered hand. "In my tribe, we believe that love doesn't end with death. It transforms and finds new paths. Perhaps your Sarah's spirit led you to this moment, to these children who need saving." The touch of her hand sent unexpected warmth through him. As dawn approached, they sat closer together, sharing the warmth of Mackenzie's coat. The walls between their different worlds seemed to dissolve in the quiet intimacy of the moment. "Whatever happens today," Mackenzie said, "I want you to know that meeting you has changed something in me. You've given me hope again." Copper Arrow's response was to lean closer, and their lips met in a gentle kiss, tender and full of promise. It was a moment of peace before the storm, a connection that transcended the hatred and fear that divided their peoples. "Together," she whispered against his lips, "we can build that bridge I dreamed of." Deputy Jack Morgan rode hard through the canyon toward Clark's estate, his horse's hooves echoing off the rock walls. Jealousy had eaten at him for years, watching Mackenzie hold the sheriff's position that should have been his. "Mr. Clark," he panted as he dismounted at the grand house. "Mackenzie's been sniffing around the mines with that Indian woman. They know about the children." Clark's face darkened as he poured himself a whiskey. "I've invested too much in this operation to let some righteous fool destroy it. Send word to Sam Dawkins immediately. I want both of them eliminated before they can cause more trouble." Sam Dawkins spat tobacco juice into the dust as he studied the wanted poster Clark had given him. $1,000 for each of them, dead or alive?" "Dead preferred," Clark replied coldly. "Mackenzie's becoming a liability, and the Indian woman knows too much about our mountain operations. Make it look like an accident if possible." Dawkins grinned, revealing yellowed teeth. "My boys and I know these canyons well. They won't see us coming until it's too late." Clark handed him a leather pouch heavy with gold coins. "Just make sure it's done quietly. I have a reputation to maintain in this town." The rifle shot echoed through Black Rock Canyon as Mackenzie and Copper Arrow rode toward the mine. The bullet whined past Mackenzie's ear, chipping stone from the canyon wall. "Ambush!" he shouted, pulling Copper Arrow from her horse as more shots rang out from the rocks above. They scrambled for cover behind a fallen boulder as bullets sparked off the stones around them. Copper Arrow cried out as a ricochet caught her shoulder, blood seeping through her buckskin dress. "How many?" Mackenzie asked, reloading his Colt. "At least 4," she replied through gritted teeth. "And they know exactly where we're headed." Using her knowledge of the terrain, Copper Arrow led them through narrow passages between the rocks, her wounded shoulder leaving a trail of blood on the stone. They moved like shadows, staying ahead of their pursuers through sheer determination. "There's a sacred cave not far from here," she whispered. "My people have used it for ceremonies for generations. The entrance is hidden, and there are multiple ways out." As they reached the concealed opening, Mackenzie helped her inside. The cave was filled with ancient paintings and artifacts, a sanctuary from the violence outside. Clark knows we're getting close, McKenzie said, tending to her wound. He's desperate enough to risk everything to stop us. Chief Gray Eagle sat in the sacred council circle as smoke from the ceremonial fire curled toward the stars. The tribal elders had gathered to hear his daughter's urgent message, delivered by a young brave who had witnessed the ambush. The white sheriff fights beside Copper Arrow, the chief announced. They have seen our children in chains. Now the evil one seeks to silence them forever. Swift Horse, the tribe's greatest warrior, stood with his hand on his tomahawk. Then we ride to war, my chief. Too long have we watched our young ones disappear into the white man's darkness. The council murmured agreement, their faces grim in the firelight. Broken Arrow, scarred from many battles, examined the modern revolvers they had taken from previous encounters with bandits. These thundersticks are different from our bows, he said, but McKenzie can teach us their secrets. McKenzie nodded as he demonstrated the proper stance and aim. The balance is different, but the principle remains the same. Steady hand, clear sight, and respect for the weapon's power. The warriors practiced in the dim cave light, their natural skills adapting quickly to the foreign weapons. Outside, Copper Arrow ground healing herbs with practiced hands, preparing both medicine and poison for their arrows. We must strike two places at once, Copper Arrow explained, her shoulder bandaged but her spirit strong. The mine where the children suffer, and Clark's house where he plans his evil deeds. McKenzie traced their plan in the dirt. Swift Horse and half the warriors take the mine. Chief Gray Eagle and I will confront Clark directly, but we must time it perfectly. Any delay, and he'll execute the children rather than let them be rescued. The warriors nodded solemnly, understanding the stakes. This was more than a rescue mission. It was a battle for the soul of their people and the future of both races in this harsh land. As they prepared their weapons and painted their faces for battle, an unlikely bond formed between the white sheriff and the Shoshone warriors. Language barriers dissolved in the face of shared purpose and mutual respect. Your daughter fights with the heart of a warrior, McKenzie told Gray Eagle. She's shown me that courage has no color. The chief placed a weathered hand on McKenzie's shoulder. And you have shown us that honor can exist in any man who chooses to embrace it. Tonight, we fight not as white and red, but as people who protect the innocent. The alliance was sealed with a handshake that bridged two worlds. The mountain night was silent, as death when Swift Horse and his warriors descended upon the mine like hunting wolves. Their moccasined feet made no sound on the rocky ground as they approached the sleeping guards. Steel flashed in the moonlight as tomahawks found their marks with deadly precision. McKenzie and Copper Arrow slipped into the main shaft while the warriors secured the entrance. The stale air reeked of fear and unwashed bodies. In the flickering torchlight, they saw the children huddled together, their chains clanking softly as they stirred. "Little wolf," Copper Arrow whispered, kneeling beside her nephew. "We've come to take you home." The sound of approaching boots echoed through the tunnels as Dawkins and his gang emerged from the deeper chambers. They had been waiting, using the children as bait for their trap. "Well, well," Dawkins sneered, his gun drawn. "Looks like the sheriff and his red companion walked right into our parlor." Gunfire erupted in the confined space, muzzle flashes illuminating the underground lake that pooled in the cavern's depths. McKenzie dove behind a mining cart as bullets whined overhead, the metallic tang of gunpowder mixing with the damp air. Swift Horse's war cry echoed from the entrance as reinforcements arrived. In the chaos of battle, Copper Arrow proved herself a deadly fighter. As a bandit took aim at McKenzie's back, her throwing knife found its target with lethal accuracy. The man dropped his weapon and collapsed, clutching his throat. "Behind you!" she shouted, already reaching for another blade. McKenzie spun and fired, his shot taking down another gunman. The battle raged around the underground lake, torch flames dancing wildly as men fought and died in the ancient darkness. Dawkins cursed as he saw his men falling one by one to the combined assault of bullets and arrows. Broken Arrow's arrow found Dawkins's heart just as the outlaw leader triggered a hidden dynamite charge. The explosion rocked the mine, sending chunks of rock cascading from the ceiling and threatening to bury them all. "The tunnel's collapsing!" McKenzie shouted over the rumbling earth. "Get the children out!" Swift Horse and his warriors formed a human chain, passing the freed children toward the entrance as dust and debris filled the air. The ancient mine groaned and shifted, its timbers cracking under the strain. But as they reached what they thought was safety, more gunfire erupted from outside. Clark himself had arrived with his remaining men, blocking their only escape route with a wall of lead and hate. Edward Clark descended into the mine like a man possessed, his fine clothes torn and dusty, his eyes wild with desperation. In his hands, he carried sticks of dynamite with a lit fuse, the flame hissing ominously in the underground darkness. "Sheriff McKenzie," he called out, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "I know you're down there with those children. This ends now one way or another." The rescued children cowered behind the mining equipment as Clark's remaining gunmen took positions near the blocked entrance. The wealthy businessman's mask of respectability had finally fallen away, revealing the monster beneath. "You want to save these little savages?" Clark shouted, holding the dynamite high. "Then let's make a deal, lawman. Walk away from this whole affair. Forget what you've seen. Tell the townspeople these children ran off on their own." McKenzie stepped into the torchlight, his Colt trained on Clark. "You know I can't do that, Clark. These children are going home to their families." Clark laughed bitterly. "Always the righteous fool. Do you know how much money this operation brings in? How many important people depend on it? You're willing to destroy all of that for a handful of Indian brats?" "Those brats are human beings," McKenzie replied firmly. "Something you forgot a long time ago." Clark's face twisted with rage as he lit the dynamite fuse. "Then we all die together. At least my secrets die with us." He turned toward a hidden passage carved into the rock wall, planning his escape. But Copper Arrow had anticipated his move. She pointed urgently at an underground stream flowing near the explosives. "The sacred waters," she gasped. "If he destroys the source, it will poison our lands for generations." McKenzie saw the danger and lunged forward desperately. The two men grappled on the edge of the underground chasm, fighting for control of the lit dynamite. Clark was desperate, but McKenzie fought with the strength of righteousness and love for Copper Arrow and the children. "You'll never understand," Clark snarled as they struggled. "Power is everything in this world." "You're wrong," McKenzie grunted, forcing Clark backward. "Love is everything." With a final surge of strength, McKenzie broke Clark's grip. The wealthy man tumbled into the dark abyss below, still clutching the dynamite. The explosion came moments later, deep in the earth's bowels, collapsing only the old, abandoned sections of the mine while leaving their escape route intact. 1 month after the mine battle, the church bells of Reading rang out across the valley as Sheriff Thomas McKenzie and Copper Arrow exchanged vows. The ceremony blended Christian traditions with Shoshone customs, conducted both inside the whitewashed church and under the open sky where her people gathered. Reverend Williams spoke of love conquering division, while Chief Gray Eagle blessed the union with ancient words and sacred smoke. The rescued children, now healthy and smiling, scattered flower petals as the couple walked between two worlds joined as one. Little Wolf, his spirit restored, proudly carried the rings on a beaded cushion made by his aunt. Federal investigators arrived from Denver, their notebooks thick with evidence of Clark's illegal operations throughout the territory. Deputy Morgan sat in shackles, awaiting transport to the territorial prison for his role in the conspiracy. "Corruption runs deeper than we thought," Agent Harrison told McKenzie. "Clark's operation extended to 3 other territories. Your investigation has exposed a network that's been operating for years." McKenzie pinned his badge to his vest with renewed purpose. "Then we'll make sure justice reaches every corner where children have suffered." A young deputy named Williams, recommended by Chief Gray Eagle, stood ready to replace Morgan with honor and integrity. Copper Arrow opened her school in a building donated by grateful townspeople who had learned the truth about Clark's crimes. The classroom buzzed with the voices of children speaking both English and Shoshone, their laughter erasing years of mistrust between the communities. "Today we learn about the stars," she told her mixed class of white and Indian children. "In both our languages, they guide us home." McKenzie watched from the doorway, his heart full as he saw the bridge between worlds that she had dreamed of finally taking shape. Her wisdom and courage had planted seeds of understanding that would grow for generations. As winter snow began to fall on the Colorado mountains, Copper Arrow placed Mackenzie's hand on her growing belly. Their child stirred within, a new life that would inherit the best of both their worlds. "What shall we call her?" Mackenzie asked softly. "Star of Hope," Copper Arrow replied, using both English and Shoshone words. She will be a symbol of what's possible when people choose love over fear, justice over profit. Mackenzie kissed his wife gently as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. In the distance, children's voices carried on the wind. All children, playing together without fear, their futures bright with promise and possibility.